Welcome into version 2 of Betting the Pitch, the real underscore G Warner. This is Champions League Match Day 3 live from Milan, Italy, as Salzburg visit Inter Milan earlier today, going that with a good friend of mine. And we're going to find some best bet winners for this midweek set of matches. Tuesday and Wednesday Champions League, recording this Tuesday afternoon, probably about an hour or so before we leave for San Siro. Just went for Milan Juventus on Sunday. Unfortunately, only got 42 minutes of Christian Pulisic, but whatever. We're here, and at least we got one more match at San Siro before they knock it over. If you're on YouTube, please hit subscribe for an Apple Podcast or Spotify. Leave a 5-star review. It'd be huge to get up the search rankings. I just want to make sure this is actually broadcasting on Twitter because we just had a big internet issue. But regardless of today's podcast, whenever it gets up, however it gets up, going to do a best bet for Tuesday and for Wednesday, and then come up with an ultimate best bet, put that on all the social channels, wherever you're watching. I appreciate it. If you are not yet a member of my Patreon, check that out. Patreon.com, just a real underscore G Warner. You become a patron, you get my direct access, or as much as you can, to my plays, specifically my leans, my write-ups. And if you download the application, you can turn on notifications and get a buzz or a notification each time I lock something in, add a lean or whatever. Leans come out usually each night and gives you an idea where I'm going for the day. So check that out, patreon.com, just a real underscore G Warner. All lines quoted in this podcast are courtesy of BetOnline.ag, my favorite place to get my bets down early. Reduced use is offered on almost every game you want to bet right up until game time. Please follow the link found in the podcast description to fund your account and use promo code GW50 to receive a 50% match bonus up to $1,000. So make sure, if you don't have enough outs, no one does. If you don't have BetOnline, as you're not a customer there yet, you haven't been there yet, you've never made an account, I know this works for first-time depositors. GW50, put that in, you get a free 50% match from the Sportsbook. Good to have casino funds in your account and to use those for potentially turning their money into more money in your pocket or in your account. So let's get into it. Going to start with the Tuesday matches. I don't think actually that Inter Milan are first on the list. So we'll start with Galatasaray visiting Bayern München. Galatasaray currently a 1.25 goal underdog at home. The juice is over under at 3.5, with the juice to the under pretty heavily there. Juice is split both ways on the side. I missed saying that last time. But Galatasaray are a pretty good Turkish club. Have gotten off to a great start this season. And ultimately, though, in Champions League, I feel like there's been some problems with the Turkish sides where pretty much they have a lot of big names, good players. They have seemingly a fair amount of money to spend, especially the Istanbul-based clubs, to spend on big names, but they're usually a little bit past their prime or haven't really fit into their last club. And unfortunately, their first outing against Copenhagen in this group didn't work out very well. At home, had to come from behind to escape with a draw. Then they did get a great win, though, against Manchester United. So it's hard to kind of figure what they're going to do. Really struggle to beat the worst team in the group at home, and then go on the road and win at Old Trafford. But now they're at home for another match. Should have a huge, big atmosphere. I think Turkish crowds are one of the best in continental Europe play. Bayern, on the other hand, though, are just really capable of smashing anybody. And I think Galatasaray have a lot of defensive concerns. Bayern, to me, have not been as strong or not as scary in the Bundesliga in Germany this year, but have looked great so far. Harry Kane has looked so good, especially playing for England, and what he did to the Italian national side in the international break just maybe a week ago. I think from a Galatasaray point of view, this is the spot to back them if you're going to play them in either of the two matchups. They'll probably be a 2-goal underdog or so in Munich. But my biggest concern, though, is I just don't know that the Galatasaray defense can handle Kane specifically and the speed on the wings that Bayern München will be able to use today. So I don't know that I necessarily want that. I think over under at 3.5. When it gets above 3, that's usually my big time interest in under. But hard to want to play unders with Bayern München really at this point. Moving next to Inter Milan hosting Red Bull Salzburg, the match I'll be attending. Inter at 1.75 goal favorite, more juice on Salzburg on the road. Over under is 3, just a little bit to over. Inter, they kind of struggled through, but ended up winning 3-0, got a late penalty to make a 2-0 lead into 3-0, but ultimately, I don't know how much that changed. I think they were covering the spread the whole time. Good for them to get a clean sheet out of the international break against a decent Torino side, but the Bulls, the Toros really struggled to score. Salzburg are going to, and I think what makes me a little bit excited about this match, even though it's nearly a 2-goal spread, is that Salzburg are not a defensive team. They're going to go in and try to outscore Inter. The weather today in Milan is not great. I haven't left actually the Airbnb yet. It is rainy. It's been raining since last night. Hopefully going to dry out, and hopefully I will not be under one of those rain spouts that you saw on Twitter recently. But Inter I doubt it's moving to 2 goals as a 2-goal favorite. But the over-under of 3 is a little bit interesting just because Inter, they are a pretty good defense, as we saw from the clean sheet this weekend. Salzburg, though, I think are going to make any sort of under lean or interest or even play that much more of a heartburn headache type thing of that nature. Salzburg, they're a young team. They are a feeder for their parent club, Red Bull Leipzig in Germany, but also have been selling players really not just to that system, but also to other places. They're going to go on the front foot. They're going to try to outscore Inter. We've seen them do that really in every type of place they've played, even I think in the Champions League knockout rounds against Bayern Munich last year, if I remember correctly. So I don't expect that to change. And Inter's like dream scenario is to face a team of or a weekend defense and be able to use their counterattack and go 4v3 or 3v3 or something unbalanced because Lautaro Martinez, Marcus Thuram, and the rest of Inter are so good at potentially scoring those goals. So I'm not sure that I really want to mess with Salzburg at this point. Maybe if they got to 2 goals, it'd be a little bit more interesting to get that push if they lose 2-0 or 3-1 or something of that nature. But I think under is probably just a temptation that I'm going to avoid on this Tuesday. Manchester United then host FC Copenhagen. This big opportunity for Manchester United to finally get a victory and really to try to, I don't know, turn on their Champions League season. Manchester United, 1.5 goal favorite at home with more of the juice. Over-under is 3.25. Juice very heavily to under. We might see a 3 before this kicks off. And that's probably my biggest interest in this one is under is backing Copenhagen in a certain way to go into Manchester United and try to defend like heck for 95 or with stoppage time, 100 minutes, it seems. Manchester United certainly have had an awful start to the season, awful start to Champions League. We'll see if that changes. They've got the worst team in their group at home. This should be a victory, but I think I'm not the only one that doesn't trust Manchester United's offense. Should have a lot of chances. Should be a little bit of an interesting thing with Rasmus Højlund, the Danish international, facing a Danish club and the biggest club in Denmark. But I'm not sure that I think Copenhagen can really threaten Manchester United defensively or on offense and Manchester United is on defense. I do think the Old Trafford crowd should be supportive, but unfortunately English fans are pretty fickle and that can change pretty quickly, especially if things don't start off well versus Manchester United. There are a lot of mistakes in Manchester United, of course. I don't know that Copenhagen really take advantage of them. So then you switch the other side of the real big, I think, question for under is how well can Copenhagen defend Manchester United? And I think they can. I think they're going to have the will and desire to do that. I think 0-0 would be a great result for Copenhagen. And honestly, I think the later this goes, even trailing 1-0, they'll probably not come out to the 80th minute or something of that nature, maybe 75th. So that's a good chance that we get a lot of defending here. So I like that under 3.25, though it's very juiced at the moment at BetOnline. Moving next to Sevilla hosting Arsenal. Currently Sevilla a 3/4 underdog at home with a little bit more juice. Over under is 2.5, juiced pretty heavily to over. Sevilla changed their manager right before the international break. Not really sure that I have a huge book on him. Former Uruguay national team manager. And then they were ultimately not that impressive, though, unfortunately. Arsenal on the other side had that huge win against Manchester City, but then had to go into the international break, have been missing some players, of course. I don't know exactly. I think Arsenal will probably be a little bit more careful with Saka and other players like that going forward because they don't want to lose players to injury like they have. But for this matchup, Arsenal going on the road as the 3/4 goal favorite is pretty respectful. I mean, I think we saw Real Madrid close in this type of region or area for their spread on Saturday at Sevilla. Yeah, I think they closed 3/4 almost exactly this price. I think, and we had a total at 3, so it's a little bit smaller here, seeing 2.5, maybe because there's a little bit more respect for potentially I guess it would be for I don't know. Arsenal's defense still gives me some questions, but Sevilla haven't really looked like the offensive juggernaut or anything like that they've been in previous years. That probably was never the case. But I think Arsenal can make this really tight. As a big favorite on the road, though, that they should be winning this match according to the spread. I think Sevilla, I should say, are probably going to make this a lot tighter than Arsenal can. Arsenal are going to try to win this match and try to jump out early and take a lead, and then I would expect Mikel Arteta as a Pep Guardiola protege to really try to extend this lead and spread it out as much as possible. So from a Sevilla point of view, they're probably going to try to defend. I think that makes me probably more interested in under 2.5 than the 3/4 of a goal, especially doesn't look like we're going to get a full goal of insurance at home. But I guess I can't really help but want to be against it, Arsenal a little bit more than maybe I was entering the season with their huge squad value and how well they played in the Premier League last season. We got to keep in mind they haven't played in Champions League in a while, and balancing Europa League to English Premier League is certainly challenging, but Champions League is another level, of course, with much better teams. Sevilla are trying to, I guess, work their way out of trouble near the relegation zone in La Liga as well. But I like that. I guess I like Sevilla and under if I had to pick something for this match. Moving next to Lens hosting PSV Eindhoven in northern France. We have Lens a pick 'em, but with almost all the juice. Over unders 2 3/4, juiced heavily to over. Lens are a great home side. They really started the year off really poorly, but that was because they lost a lot of players and had to brought in a lot of the talent they were looking to. And then, of course, you got to then make everyone know how to play together. And so that's taken a little while. Lens are going to be on the front foot. They're going to play aggressively. Same manager still in place. Their offense has gotten better since they brought in some transfers. Eindhoven on the other side, I think, have been pretty disappointing so far in this tournament. I think we're in group play. I think Eindhoven have a lot of talent, but we haven't really seen a lot of it. So it does feel like they're getting a fair amount of respect today at a pick 'em right now, when I usually give 1/4 of a goal for home field advantage or home pitch advantage, whatever we want to call it, at minimum. And I think Lens deserve more than that. Their crowd's awesome. So Eindhoven at pick seems way too cheap to me. So that kind of tells me that the Champions League market does like Eindhoven in this one. I would lean to Lens and would play them potentially if we got even money or even or something like that at pick 'em, but doesn't look like the juice will allow for that. So I probably won't take anything on the side here. As for the total, over under 2 3/4, I think Lens are going to be on the front foot. It's going to force Eindhoven to be defensive. And I think once those first goals go in, or first one does, that changes strategies, whether it's the home team or road team scoring. So I don't know if there's a lot for me there on the total either. Next, we'll move to Union Berlin hosting Napoli. Union, a 1/2 goal underdog at home with most of the juice. Over under is 2.5, and it is juiced slightly to under. Napoli had a pretty good performance, I guess. Vicha Kvaratskhelia, or Veradona, as they're calling him in Napoli, certainly has started to tick up and scoring some goals. But they are dealing with a lot of injuries, and unfortunately, they're not really the same team that they were when they looked like the best team in the world, probably about a year ago, and maybe even a little bit later as they started to hit into the knockout stages of Champions League when all their injuries hit. But they're injured again. They got to go on the road. It's a little bit different of an environment. Union Berlin had a huge crowd at the Olympiastadion, though it's not their home ground in Berlin. It definitely isn't the same type of cauldron or fortress that you'd see at Union, but they also had entered this weekend with, I think, 7 straight losses. So things have not been great for Union. It makes sense they're an underdog at home, and they're a team that honestly I've been backing nonstop ever since they made the Bundesliga, but fortunately have kind of veered off that this season. They're in transition. They've tried to add new offensive players to kind of prepare themselves for Champions League. It has not gone great. But I think they're kind of morphing back into that defensive side. So I like that kind of strategy and idea, trust their manager wholeheartedly. So I like that 1/2 of a goal at home, though it's very juicy at the moment, might end up falling to 1/4 before it kicks off. And that'd be a good sign for Union if the market is backing them in that way, though I think I think under 2.5 is probably my bigger interest, just because I think Union are going to do a lot to restrict Napoli. I think Napoli are not the same offense and really just not the same team in general that they were last season. So under 2.5 is something I like there. Benfica then hosts Real Sociedad. Sociedad off to a great start in Champions League and have had a pretty good run so far this season. Benfica, a 1/4 goal favorite at home with most of the juice. Over under 2.5, juiced heavily to under. So we might see 2 1/4 before this kicks off potentially. Benfica with red card issues in their first match against, I think it was Salzburg, I believe, if memory serves, which you never know how well memory serves as we age. But anyway, Sociedad could have beaten Inter at home, didn't, but ended up holding on to it, I guess. Take a pretty disappointing draw is probably what it was. They did take a lead early. Then they beat Salzburg, so they're in great shape to start this group play off. Benfica are probably going to be the more desperate team, and they're the home favorite, so I would expect that they're going to be going all out for a victory. And what that does is it will allow, I think, more of a counterattacking opportunity for Sociedad, who have been more defensive on the road than I think I was expecting coming into this season. I was kind of hoping they would be a control the ball at all times, at all costs, no matter where they played, especially against equal or lower competition. But even seeing them against Las Palmas in La Liga play pretty defensively, and even at the end kind of waste some clock and play for a draw, makes me think that they're going to be pretty conservative here. I like that from a defensive point of view, and probably points to that under 2.5 that we currently see very juiced. But I guess from my liking Sociedad, backing them to get through the group stage and finish in a Champions League position in La Liga, I do like the pragmatic style, and I think it sets up well to potentially escape with a result here from Lisboa. But ultimately, I also think Sociedad have plenty of talent, could actually win this matchup. So we'll see what that ends up looking like. But at the quarter of a goal, I like that on Sociedad. I like the under 2.5 as well. I think this is going to be a pretty low scoring match. Benfica are generally, I think, in one of the best clubs in La Liga Portugal, which has been so good in this competition over the years. But usually they're a lot more defensive, I think, and that's helped them to play that pragmatic style kind of a similar way. Though I don't think they necessarily do that here, especially after the poor start in the group. They do, of course, have 2/3 of group play left, but I think they need to make an impression here. This is their best chance to probably get something against their biggest rival, I think, to advance. I think most people expect Inter to get through the group. But then the second place was kind of a toss-up between Benfica and Real Sociedad. I think I have Sociedad as a to advance number, but I'm pretty sure I do, but it's been a while. Anyway, I'm leaning to Sociedad. It's going to be a tough road environment, so that quarter of a goal does feel a little bit flimsy or small. But the juice is currently pointing towards Benfica right now, so maybe we get a half of a goal before this kicks off. And so I guess I lean to under 2.5 here as well. And last but not least, Sporting Braga hosts Real Madrid. Currently, Braga a 1.25 goal underdog at home. A little bit more juice on Real Madrid on the road. Over under 3.25, juice a little bit to under. I just haven't really been a believer in Real Madrid and their offense. It's been a lot of late goals, a lot of Jude Bellingham off of really bad goalkeeping errors, rebounds that were literally put on goals on silver platters in front of his foot. Of course, credit him for taking advantage of it, and he's been awesome in general. I just don't know how long that will continue. I think Sporting Braga know that they're going to play defensively, even at home, when a big name like Real Madrid comes in. Their defense was a little bit problematic, fell behind to Napoli in the opener, and then ended up scoring a goal. And then a ridiculous, awful own goal, ended up losing them the match late. I imagine that, I guess counted for 3 goals, and that one would pay out on the under 3.25 at the moment. I'm still expecting Braga, I think, to learn from that Napoli match and probably be a little bit more defensive to prevent that first goal from going in. Real Madrid, I think, are going to do really well defensively. They're going to be able to keep Sporting Braga pretty quiet. So unfortunately, totals don't, and under specifically, look bad when the scores get out of hand, but I don't necessarily think this one will, despite the 1.25 goal favorite on the road here for Real Madrid. Even then, I think that will still be a pretty close match, even if Real Madrid do go ahead early. I think if Braga take a lead, they'll probably play as defensively as they can, try to grind out a 1-0 victory. Probably won't be able to hold on or hold out, but I think that'd be great for under. So I think under 3.25 looks good to me there. And for my best bet for Tuesday, I'm going to go with that Union Berlin under 2.5. I think that's probably the best situation for under, where the home team is going to try to restrict this as low as possible. And I think they are fine with playing that way, even with a poor start with 2 losses off to start off their Champions League campaign. So moving to Wednesday, we have Barcelona hosting Shakhtar Donetsk in the earliest of the matches, early window. Barcelona, a 2-goal favorite, most of the juice, if not all of it, on Shakhtar Donetsk on the road. Over under 3.25, juice to over. Barca, their offense has not been great this season. It's been ticking up after a poor start to the year. They were an under bettor's dream towards the end of last season, even in winning La Liga. But I guess that's improved a little bit. Defense has been a little bit shaky, but Shakhtar Donetsk, they're in an interesting position because they don't play in their home country in this competition. They know they need results and got a huge win on the road in their last matchup coming from behind against Antwerp. But ultimately, I mean, third place would be good for them dropping down to Europa League. So I feel like if they can get a point here at the Olympic Stadium in Barcelona, not at Camp Nou, where they're so famous to play in front, I think that reduces the ability for Barcelona at home, though they got to play at home this weekend. So they certainly no travel at all impacting them. So that's helpful. I think from a Shakhtar point of view, they like to play in a counterattacking brand of football, but it hasn't always worked. And unfortunately, I don't think their defense is really that strong. So my interest, I think, more is to under 3.25 than to back Shakhtar Donetsk +2. But ultimately, it's kind of a similar type of play because I think a high scoring match would be really, really bad for Shakhtar Donetsk's chances at getting a result here. Of course, a win is always possible, but very unlikely. You get 12-1 odds that Shakhtar will win in regulation. So that seems pretty unlikely. But I guess I do have some interest in Shakhtar and that under there, but really I think it's based on Barcelona totals being overstated for a long time now. Feyenoord then hosts Lazio, the other match in that early window. Feyenoord a half a goal favorite, chooses split both ways. Over under is 2.75, choose to over. Very respectful of Feyenoord and kind of disrespectful of Lazio, though Lazio have been off to a really poor start to start this season. I'm not sure exactly why Lazio are getting this little respect. It feels like a pretty big ask for Feyenoord, who haven't really looked great to me to starting Champions League so far. I think maybe my expectations were high, but Lazio have not looked great. They haven't really been scoring goals. Their defense hasn't been as good as it was when it finished second in Serie A last season. But you could argue there's a lot of other things going on with the other clubs in Italy. So maybe that's a little bit more of an explanation. I'm interested in the half of a goal, though. I feel like making Feyenoord better on a neutral field is a little bit too respectful of Feyenoord, even if Lazio haven't gotten off to a great start. And I guess I lean a little bit to under here just because Lazio's defense and manager have been pretty proven defensively. And I think on the road, their offense is likely to do worse. And I think they're more likely to focus on defense there. Moving into the afternoon, or excuse me, the later window, Newcastle hosts Borussia Dortmund. Currently Newcastle, a 3/4 goal favorite at home with all the juice. Over under is 2.75 juice all the way to over. I don't really know where the over leans come from in here. Borussia Dortmund struggled for a lot of the match with Werder Bremen at home and really kind of held on for dear life, it felt like, to get a point against one of the worst teams in the Bundesliga. I've been very unimpressed with Dortmund. They've gotten some results, I think, all season they haven't deserved, entered into the weekend top of the table in the Bundesliga without playing anywhere near the best team in Germany. Newcastle on the other side have looked really good. They're awesome at home. Their crowd is huge at home, and they somehow they seem to always score goals that you wouldn't expect, or really that they don't really seem to deserve because they play at home. It looks like the spread's going to get up to potentially closing a 1-point underdog or 1-goal underdog for Borussia Dortmund. I think that's a big, big price. You rarely see that even against Bayern München in Germany. So that honestly makes me a little bit more interested in Borussia Dortmund if they get to that +1. But I think my interest here is if that total gets to 3, just because I don't think Newcastle are a really efficient offensive team as a big favorite and at home, which should probably limit the road team Borussia Dortmund's goal opportunities. I just feel like 3 goals, if you get there, is kind of where I'm looking, but we don't have that yet. PSG then hosts AC Milan, who I'm wearing, and I just saw live really not do anything, but late first half red card certainly changed things a lot and ended up getting Captain America subbed off, unfortunately. But PSG, a 3/4 goal favorite, a little bit more juice at home. Over under is 2.75, juice to under. PSG have not really been that impressive to me. They've certainly brought in a ton of talent, sold a lot of it, or a lot walked away. So they had to bring in a totally new team essentially and are working that out. I thought the win at home against Dortmund was pretty fortunate based on horrible officiating, La Liga refs, of course. But this is a big price for PSG. They have to win by 2 goals to take a full bet on Milan or take your full risk. So I'm interested in Milan keeping this close. I do wonder what they're going to look like. They should have Maignan back for this matchup. He's, I think, only suspended in Serie A, so that would be helpful. So they're not having Mirante playing, their third string goalkeeper, though ultimately I think he was not the reason they lost to Juventus. Tough deflected goal seemed to get past him, and that was about it. But PSG, there's a lot of respect here in this number. I don't really agree with it. Seems like a fair number for what they gave to Dortmund, and really got fortunate on a bad handball call to win. So that doesn't necessarily scare me. In terms of the total, over under 2.75, I think I also lean under there. I don't really believe that PSG are that much better than Milan, so I think it's gonna be tough for them to score. So lean to Milan and to under in that one. Young Boys then host Manchester City. Young Boys, Man City. Don't make that joke. I guess I just did. Anyway, Young Boys, a 2-goal underdog at home, a little bit more juice on Man City on the road. Over-unders 3.25, juice pretty heavily to under. Big price for Man City to lay, considering how they've kind of struggled in the last few weeks. But ultimately, they're clearly a much better side than Young Boys. So what to expect from that one, I'm not necessarily sure. Young Boys playing on a artificial turf, I'm sure, is going to be a big complaint amongst Pep Guardiola, his staff, and all that sort of thing, of how you let a team play in Champions League with fake turf. But regardless, that's not so important. I do think that might make an impact and potentially slow the ball down a little bit, maybe make it a little bit harder for Manchester City to pass the ball as much as they'd like to, because they're certainly going to set up to dominate possession in this matchup. Lean to the home dog getting 2 goals, but there's clear blowout risk between a Swiss team from Bern and then the best team in the world that won three trophies last season out of 4. Over under 3.25 would be, I guess, correlated to like under there as well as like Young Boys. But I'm not sure that I'm that interested in it, though that would be the way I'd go if I had to. Celtic then hosts Atletico Madrid. We got a few matches left to go, and we'll come up with an ultimate best bet. Celtic a 0.5 goal underdog at home, with a little bit more juice. Over unders 2.75. She's heavily to under. Potentially might see 2.5 coming up soon. It feels like a really respectful number for Celtic. I mean, you could certainly point some issues in Atletico Madrid and that they don't really go for the kill. They try to take a lead and hold on to it. I think that plays into the under potentially here at under 2.75, though it's very juiced at the moment. Might see 2.5 before kickoff. I think for the Celtic side, they have not proven to be competitive at this level or really any European level. So I need to see that before I want to back them, especially getting less than a goal. Though the market does seem like they are pointing to a good performance from Celtic here, or just a bad one from Atletico Madrid, and that is not unheard of in Champions League. So I think my bigger interest is under 2.75 there. RB Leipzig then hosts Crvena Zvezda or Red Star Belgrade from Serbia. Leipzig a 1.75 goal favorite with all the juice. Over unders 3.5, juice a little bit to under. Leipzig have not really been as strong heading into the international break, unfortunately, but they've had a really tough fixture load with Bayern and Manchester City back-to-back matches at home. Certainly helped that they're at home, but they deserve better than 1 draw and a 2-goal loss. Late one to cover the spread was brutal for your boy, but it is what it is, I guess. Waiting to see if this one hits +2. And then I think I'd be a little bit more interested in Crvena Zvezda or Red Star Belgrade, and then over under at 3.5. That's probably my bigger interest of the two, but that would really be, I think I'd have to have a lot more faith in Crvena Zvezda defense, because Leipzig have shown to be a great home team. They're going to control the ball. They're going to control the middle of the pitch. And unfortunately, as soon as Crvena Zvezda fall behind, they're going to be in trying to extend to tie that match up. Does that get to 4 goals, though? Potentially could be all from Leipzig, and that's my bigger concern. Last but not least, Antwerp hosts FC Porto. Currently, Antwerp a 0.5 goal underdog at home with all the juice. Over unders 2.5, juiced a little bit to over, or excuse me, almost all the way to over. Porto, I think, got really tough decision from the refs, canceling out a penalty from a offensive handball, which like are never called nowadays, which is ridiculous in my humble opinion. But that's what it was, and that's what was given, and they're probably pretty sick about it because they could have gotten a draw from Barcelona in their home match. Now they go on the road to Belgium. They need to get a win here. They're favored to win. They're a much better team, Antwerp, from a very early lead, I think within the first couple of minutes, to taking a 2-1 lead, I think it was, and then losing 3-2 in their last matchup with Shakhtar Donetsk at home was pretty brutal. They need a result here, or they need to perform. I don't know if a result does include a draw. I guess that would be a decent performance against a team that's expected to go through second. But if they're trying to get out of this group, they're going to need 3 points. Or if they're trying to finish in the 3rd place position to drop to the Europa League and not straight out of the competition, then they likely need to be aggressive here and try to win. I don't think Antwerp are anywhere near talent-wise what Porto are, even in the Liga Portugal. I just don't really know where to go with this one, because I think Antwerp have to start trying to win matches, which is going to put their defense, even with some old, like kind of has-beens from the Premier League there, big names like Toby Alderweireld. They're just not really in a position to do it, I don't think. They're going to, I mean, at home, you never know what could happen. Probably will play a lot better there, but it's asking a lot. And I'm not really sure that I see a lot coming from them, especially against a really good Porto side. So probably not much for me to do there, getting a half of a goal, I got to say. So probably just one of those that I will end up not doing too much with. And then I guess rooting for much, but for the Wednesday best bet, and then I'll go to the ultimate best bet, kind of clip that out for an Instagram or YouTube reel as well, or short, I think is what they call it. Try to keep all the names together, but we'll get to an ultimate best bet for Wednesday. I think my biggest interest right now, I like the Milan idea. I do like that they're under there too, though I think that's probably a little bit less interesting to me. Lots here are getting too much in my humble opinion, but I gotta say, I think the amount of respect that Celtic are getting from the marketplace does it's kind of setting off some sirens for me. So I'll go with my best bet on Wednesday, the under 2 3/4 Celtic at home hosting Atletico Madrid. So again, we'll get to the ultimate best bet about to come through, but thank you. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit subscribe. Or on Apple Podcasts. 5-star review would be huge to work and get me up the search rankings, and especially for all the other podcasts that are on there, as we have more coming. A college basketball one will be live. We're working on the animations, whatever, right now for it, so stay tuned for that. Of course, we have NFL coming out, probably recording tonight after Champions League with my buddy Andrew Snicker. So stay tuned for that. NFL, try to get you ready for the weekend stuff on Tuesday night, essentially, or will probably be Wednesday here in Europe, but Tuesday in the United States. And I'll put out a baseball thing for the World Series once we get figuring out who's going to be playing in it, which we should decide tonight, or will decide tonight. So that will all be great. And then if you are not a Patreon subscriber, if you're not a patron yet, check it out. Patreon.com/real_G Warner. Best spot to get all my leans, plays, write-ups, everything. And you get a notification every time I put something in there if you download the application. So check that out. And then last but not least, if you're not a member of BetOnline, check out, there's a description in the podcast description. There's a link with promo code GW50. And if you are a member of BetOnline, check out sportsbetting.ag. We have a link below that as well. It's another good spot to get a free 50% bonus from your initial deposit. Sportsbetting.ag, use the promo code GW50. The link and all the instructions are in the description below. Okay, so this is the real_G Warner. This is Betting the Pitch Champions League edition, and this is my best bet for Tuesday and Wednesday. Recording this October 24th in Milan, Italy. On Tuesday, my best bet is Union Berlin hosting Napoli. I like under 2.5 goals there. And on Wednesday, I like another under, Celtic in Scotland hosting Atletico Madrid under 2 3/4. For my ultimate best bet in this podcast, I'm going to go with that Celtic Atletico Madrid under 2 3/4. The best case scenario for playing unders is when you got a good road team who wants to take a 1-0 lead and sit on it. I think that's exactly what Atletico Madrid do here, though the spread being Celtic only half of a goal is a lot of respect from a marketplace that I really wasn't expecting from. You learn through business school, through stats, everything like that, to trust the marketplace, at least to a certain degree. I think Celtic are set up to play really well here based on what the odds makers are expecting. We've seen Atleti struggle on the road as a favorite before, so take under 2 3/4 for the best bet for this episode of Betting the Pitch. And that'll do it for this episode. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully the pictures in the background, if you're watching live, check it out. We've got some art, as you, I guess, would expect in the art capital, or one of the art capitals of the world, in Italy, but specifically here in Milan. Thanks for tuning in. And we should have an NFL podcast coming out tonight at some point, maybe the wee hours potentially. And then we'll see you all for a World Series episode and more of these, probably Europa League coming back when I get to Rome tomorrow. So love you all. Thanks for the support. Tell your friends, share, like, give a 5-star review, all those sort of things. Subscribe, and it'll all be great help to build this podcast even bigger.